Hello friends, welcome back to another day of painting with Yelk. How are y'all doing? Thanks for joining, Marlin. Personally, I did not get a good night's sleep last night. For whatever reason, body was like, hey, you only need 3 hours, right? So brain running a bit slow too. Oh, so hopefully this will keep me awake a little bit longer today. I think today, y'all can hear me all right, right? I've got here some Necron Immortals, which are hard to distinguish from regular old Necrons. I don't know if I have a good example of one nearby. Nah, not offhand. But these guys got much bigger guns, got these weird little cables running to them. But otherwise pretty standard skelly boys, made out of metal. So, we already did a few things to them. We've got our standard black primer, then I hit them with a white zenithal from the top there. Then I did a little bit of dry brushing of white, and I found that they came out just a little too bright for me. So I ended up hitting them with a black wash, and that's why they look all grungy and spotty right now. So I think this is going to be a pretty good place for us to start. We're going to hit them with a base coat, not of this, of gunmetal, which is one of your standard metallic dark grays. And then we'll go over the highlights with some chainmail silver. Yeah, 3 hours was a lot less than I'm used to. 7 at the minimum. Then, in here, in these little uh, channels in their guns, their eyes, and any other little bits that I want. Oop, dropped a knife. Gonna hit them with this goblin green because they like to get the little green glowy bits for their plasma weaponry. And we might even try a little bit of this green wash to see if we can't get a nice glowy effect in there. And then I think maybe just for a little bit of detail we'll hit some of the uh, electronic parts with a nice bronze. Or we'll decide later, no, bronze, copper instead. Who knows? Painting's an adventure. So, let's see if I can pull this over a little closer so it's in shot. Been adjusting my painting setup a bit for the other crafts too. Yeah, close enough. So how's work going for you there, Merlin? Stuck in the library again today? And we've got here a mix of gloss medium and our flow improver for a little bit of DIY contrast. Yet to be able to tell if using gloss medium versus matte medium does anything, but yeah. At least you get to keep up with your favorite streamers, right? Alright, so that's giving us a nice thin metallic. Oh yeah, new meds will do that to you. Do that to you something awful. And we're just gonna slap this on pretty heavily because I think, well, over top a brighter model. Hey Kuma. A brighter model will show splotchiness more, But these guys are looking pretty grungy to start, so I don't think we have to worry too much about that. And in general, honestly, I think Necrons look better as grungy monsters. Because, robots waking up after a million years of hibernation sleep, they're not going to look too pretty. How are you doing today, Kuma? I don't know what hoy means, but I'll take it as a good sign. Ahoy hoy. One of the things I like the most about Necrons, aside from the fact that I love me some good old robots, that they are pretty much one of the easiest armies to paint, because it's just a whole lot of battered metal. Don't have to worry about using 6 different base coat colors. Nope, just gonna slap basically this entire thing with gunmetal gray and work up from there. Think for like these cables and stuff on his gun, going to end up doing that copper or bronze. But in general, silver and gunmetal gray. Silver and gunmetal gray are a good base start because it's basically white and gray with mica powder in it. The ones from Saturday? I think I actually have those on my shelf. As soon as I'm done throwing on these initial layers, I'll give you a show of them. But I think they came out alright. Still, some areas of the skin color came out a bit blotchy. I think I could have ran over them with more thinner layers. But, yeah, a little bit of that's just me being a perfectionist. Most people seem to think they came out pretty alright, according to Facebook and Reddit. And like always, don't be afraid to ask any questions about what I'm doing. Point out if I'm making any mistakes with my camera work or anything. I finally started putting my phone right here under these lamps so I can actually watch chat without having to look to my left at my computer. That's nice. Merlin, you might know this. At what point do I get uh, like channel points and stuff like that? Is that affiliate? Because I definitely need stretch reminders and all that good stuff like y'all. You think so, Kuma? That sounds right to me at the very least. There we go. Just a sloppy, transparent base coat, but you can already see the difference in the level of gloss and metallicism. And it's still got that kind of blotchy undercoat there from all the grime. Oh, I'm sure you'll remind me there, Merlin. Alright. So yeah, these little ogre boys. Like I said, a little bit of blotchiness around the bellies, but overall, not too bad. Kind of a boring color scheme in my opinion, but it's hard to go flashy when, you're mostly working with browns and tans on these models. It's not like big old ogres would be wearing, fine silks or anything. But, be very happy to fight these guys on the D&D battle map someday. Oh, that guy. Yeah, I think he came out kind of silly looking, but I think the multiple layers we did for the uh, skin color worked pretty well for him, and I ended up going over that purple with the wash, which dulled it out a bit, but gave it some nice definition. And the red really shines through nicely. I love that crimson sanguine red. I don't know if this is the color scheme I'll go for going forward. I think I might swap to like a blue and orange, but we'll see. I've got a lot of these little guys to test out with. It looks like Camthelian's lurking there. Thanks for the follow, bud. Should really get to some like follower alerts set up or something. Or set up, what is it, Nightbot again? Yeah, but that takes effort. This is just basically a lazy crafting stream. At some point, I think I'm gonna also have to get a camera in my basement there, so that when I do some airbrushing, I can show that off on stream too. Because I've got this big ol' brain work with me here. It's a young red dragon model I got from Reaper Minis a while back that I think the size of it would work really well for airbrushing. Get the nice smooth gradients on their wings and everything. The problem with a Miller cam would be I'd have to have it run all the way out to my living room, because when he's not sitting in the office with me, What he likes to do is lay out on one of his many beds in the living room watching the front door just in case. You never know when those pesky mailmen might try breaking in. Yeah, such a good guard dog. So in part, this model is sort of or these set of models are a test of a new painting style for these Necrons. Because the last set I did, a group of about 10 warriors, I think, uh, what I did was just a straight black prime, followed by a dry brushing of this gunmetal, followed by a highlighting with the silver. And I think that turned out pretty well. Definitely gave a very spotty, decayed look, but I want to try out this underpainting method I've been doing for my other minis, see if it gave a different effect or a better effect. But we'll see. Overall, I think I like the aesthetic regardless. Kind of hard to go wrong with metallics, but do some side-by-side pictures, put them up on the internet, see which people prefer. Alright, that's 2 of 5 done. It's blazing through these base coats. So is anybody else working on any fun crafts right now? Drawing, painting, sewing, crochet, any of that good stuff? Definitely haven't done enough sewing lately. Really need to get back down in my basement and finish up that quilt for you there, Merlin. Sketching. I actually just got a set of artist pencils. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm actually working here on a piece of primed canvas. But I really want to one of these days do some actual acrylic on canvas painting again. It's been so long. But I'm not the sort of person that can do just like straight on the canvas. I actually have to like sketch it out so I can trace from it with my paint, if you know what I mean. Yeah, finally got that tablet working again too. I've got to get myself used to using that again so I can actually get my profile picture looking nice. Yeah, traditional art is a different kind of beast, honestly. Like, obviously, you've got the same techniques, but what am I trying to say here? It's a different skill set, even though they're so close together, I feel. Like, if it would feel like they transfer over well, but there are just some aspects that are so close, but just different enough that it throws you off. Oh, definitely. There's really something to be said about how easy it is to select a brush in physical medium versus getting it set up in uh, digital medium. Like you just go and buy a brush and it's exactly how it's supposed to be. You don't have to fiddle around with any settings on this brush. Because this brush is always going to do what this brush is always going to do. And the paint is going to do what's going to do it based on the way you use it. If I want good texture with my heavy body paint, it's just going to come out naturally like that. Now form those stiff peaks and go with the flow. Or, well, it won't flow, it's heavy body, but you know what I mean. One of the people on my other Discord servers, acquaintances I suppose you could say, was talking about wanting to do a terracotta warrior type of paint for their mini army. And ever since I've been wondering how exactly would be the best way to get that effect, because obviously you want texture, but you don't want it to, override the actual details of the miniature. So obviously you couldn't use like any texture gels because those would just completely pave over everything. So I'm thinking like maybe a heavy body brown with a lot of stippling. I don't know. It's an interesting concept that I wish they had never implanted into my brain. But one of my future projects based entirely on conversations I've had in that Discord has also been bisexual vaporwave Tau Pathfinders, with basically the idea being that I'm going to paint them um, using the bisexual colors, using shadow painting and zenithal painting using the airbrush. So basically, when you do a airbrush zenithal, you are shooting directly down from the zenith at your model, and that means that only the areas facing upwards are going to get hit with the paint. Things underneath aren't going to get hit with the paint. But what you can also do with this is if you shoot at it from an underneath angle, then you're hitting only the shadows. You're not hitting anything from the top. So by doing multiple of these zeniths around the model, you create these transition effects so that your shadows will be blue, your midtones will be purple, and your highlights would be pink or scarlet red. And if you do some good blending, you can make it look like a kind of like a vaporwave color scheme, and also be really gay about it. And that's what I want to do with the Tau, which are um, well, I'll just show y'all in a second. But kind of like they're the faction in 40k that's really into robots. Like they sort of just kind of completely miss the memo that they shouldn't be making AI. So they've got a ton of drones and like Gundam. And all of their like battle suits and everything kind of look like they're out of a Power Rangers show. So yeah, I'll just pull out that box once I'm done giving this little buddy a base coat. Definitely one of the more annoying aspects of these guys is how little of a footprint they have. which I mean literally, they only have like tiny feet connecting them to the surface of the base, which is why this guy keeps tilting on me. Really nice if he had a more sturdy contact point. There we go. I think that's pretty good. And these darker models I'm doing, it's hard to see when I'm missing something, but at the same time, if I can't see I'm missing it, can you really see it when I'm done? Let me go grab the towel. I'm actually going to also tear off the plastic wrap while I'm at it because I don't want the glare. There we go. So now you can see, like, they really got that whole robots, drones theme, that nice, really crisp, like, paneled armor, which looks great when you do a black liner through the crevices. Really gives it a distinct style. Really blocks up the sections. So I'm either thinking of doing it where the buy flag is going to be only showing on where in this picture the white panels are, or doing it a different way without the airbrushing, just working it into like the color scheme where the black undersuit would be the dark blue, the um, panels would be the purple, and then the highlights would be the red. But we'll see. We will see. Got so many models to paint. And one day, if I'm lucky, I might actually get to play this game. That's fine, Merlin. You just got to know some basic things. Everyone is awful, everything is awful, and there is nothing but war. There you go. You now know everything there is to know about Warhammer 40k. And that is some Miller hair. When in doubt, if you get a gift from Yelk through the mail, at least 3% of it is going to be male or hair by volume. One of these days I'll learn and actually not fully assemble them before I paint so I don't struggle so much with these crevices, but today is not that day. Oh, there we go. I think this guy's looking pretty metal now. A little brutal. So now is the perfect time for everybody to stretch, de-shrimp your back. Ooh. Ah, that was good pop. Then get a drink of water. You either hydrate or you dihydrate. And then Miller came over and decided now was the perfect time for a butt rub. And he's not wrong about that. Because he's such a good boy. Yes, I'm stretching my wrist, Merlin. My poor arthritic wrists. And while we wait for these guys to dry, I think we'll also hit up this guy with a base coat too. Now, this guy isn't as dark as the others, so I think the contrast is going to show through a little bit more. But I honestly want this guy to be a bit brighter because this is our overlord. He's our head honcho. So just to give you all a little bit of backstory lore, the Necrons were originally regular old people that fought a war with gods. Sort of lost, so they had to sell their souls to other gods to get an advantage and beat them back. And it was kind of a raw deal for them because they didn't realize that they were going to lose all of their souls, and 95% of their population were going to lose their consciousness as they were transformed into these robotic forms. But a few of them, like this Overlord and the Triarchs and other of their leaders, retained their consciousness, so they get to spend the rest of eternity thinking about how they basically murdered the rest of their civilization, turning them into thoughtless drones. So that's cool. Good for these guys. But yeah, I think it's nice to have a lighter uh, palette for this guy since he's got to stick out more. Does it make him a larger target? Maybe. Who knows? But since this is a lighter surface, I'm going to try and apply this coat thinner than the others so that I can build up on it a bit better. Did you remember to stretch, Merlin? Timers. Now aren't you smart? Look at the big brain on Merlin. Back when I was working at client sites, so I'm a tech consultant. Corporations hire me to come in and fix their issues. And in the before times, they would have me on site all the time at these various locations. And I would always make it a point that even if we're in the middle of the most busy aspect of our project, every 30 minutes or so I would get up and walk around the entire campus, just a 5-10 minute walk, because it was always better to think on my feet rather than sit in a chair all day with my blood not pumping, wondering what to do next. And I think that's the one thing that would improve about my work ethic if I were to go back to the office, would just be forcing myself to get up and move more often like that. Because as it stands, I turn into a chair potato these days. But otherwise, work from home is great, and I'm never giving it up. They actually tried to tell me to come to New York next week, and I was like, nope. I've got things planned here, and I cannot skip out on them this week. Gonna lay it on a little thick on this guy's cape since I'm probably gonna be pretty heavily dry brushing over this, so I kind of just want it to fill in like a wash. I've got a little bit of a elective surgery going on, and then we've got desert bus coming up. But just in general, I do not want to be away from home. Also, with like only a week's notice to find lodging for Miller, that'd be a nightmare. Like, I could understand if I had known a month out that they were gonna need me into the New York office, but like 1 week's notice, hell no. And normally, when we do, or at least when we used to do on-site work, it was always a Monday morning to Thursday evening sort of deal. So we would at least be there for 4 days. But for this, they wanted us there from Tuesday to Thursday, and it's like, you want me to fly out to New York just for 3 days of sitting in a conference room? Fuck off. I'm not even supposed to be a project leader on this work stream. The only reason I'm a project lead right now is because y'all fired the last one. But that's all the dirty laundry of my work. Let's get back into the painting mood. Yeah, just a little bit of salt. Just to spice the food up a bit. I think for this guy, I don't know. What do you think I should do with him? This blade, this, I don't know what they call it, a void scythe, I think? Could probably do a really cool, like a light gunmetal blue by mixing gunmetal with some white ink. Kind of give it like a little celestial glow to it. That'd be pretty cool. No, Merlin, the Netherlands are in Europe, not Minecraft. Ah, that void. There we go. This guy's pretty shiny now. Just gonna double check that I got all of the little undersides. Oh, almost missed this little bit on the end here. But now you can really easily see the difference that the wash made when I did the undercoat for these immortals here. It's just so much darker and grungier than this bright silverish look. Like, it's still obviously a very gunmetal look, but it's much brighter. But I think a lot of these little details are going to get filled in. To do. So it's not going to be as sharp and bright as it is currently. So we'll see. But we've been going for a little under an hour now, so I think it's a good time to tell y'all to get up, swap your legs, stretch your fluids, all that good stuff. And we'll be back in 5 minutes at on the top of the hour. Alright, and we are back. I got myself some lemon elderflower soda water. I think we're about ready to give these immortals a dry brushing with some nice chainmail silver. Really bring out their highlights on the tips. them a little bit of definition. Should be nice. Oh. In case you haven't been around for the last few streams, dry brushing is pretty simple. You just take your brush, mix it into some paint, load it all up. Then we dry it off. What that does is lets you apply paint very lightly and only on the most raised surfaces. Well, you gotta come on up here and get some, Merlin. Got an entire keg full. This guy needs a little more poster tech. It's only sitting on one dot of it. There we go. That's better. The main things we want to catch when we're doing this dry brushing are little exposed detail bits and edges, particularly edges on the top side, because that's where the light is more likely to reflect off of and brighten up in natural lighting. Now there's something called object source lighting, OSL, which is where a particular object on the miniature itself is treated as a light source and you create light from it. But that takes a lot of effort, and I'm not into large amounts of effort. I am a lazy painter. We are just dry brushing, and one thing you might notice about my brushing is it's doing this sort of a motion. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but very much hitting it only from the top, backing away, and then going back in from the top, so that most of the paint gets deposited on the top side instead of all across and up and down. Just a little bit of technique that you might not notice at first, but makes a big impact as in the results. And you can see, not a very explicit effect, but it does add just a little bit more definition, adding a little bit of dry brushed highlight. I think this guy could use some more tack too. There we go. I didn't have as much tack on them earlier because I wanted to make sure I got all their feet, but now that we're working on details and dry brushing, not as important. As I should mention, I also set up my YouTube channel. So once the VODs get kicked off of Twitch here after 2 weeks, you can still find old ones on my YouTube. I think it's just youtube.com/@yalk321. I'll have to make sure to put a link in my About Me section. But they should be safe for posterity until YouTube decides I'm not profitable and deletes my videos or something. Of course, it won't have the music in them, so you'll just have to provide your own soundtrack. Maybe pretend that I'm quietly painting to hardcore thrash metal or something. By God, there are other Yalks. What a terrifying idea. Let me see if I can find it real quick for y'all. See if that works for you. Now, obviously, that doesn't have my first painting streams because I didn't even think to record those just in case. But, you know, going forward. Yeah, so what I'm doing is just every week I'm gonna do a batch export from Twitch directly to YouTube, which is how I got the other two up there. Now this guy does not want to stay put for me. Speed paints. Fancy. Hydration check for everybody, of course. Make sure that you are staying limber and hydrated. While we swap over to our weapon bronze from Army Painter, War Paints, and see what little bits of metal we want to fill in. And this stuff, since we're just going to go in and do some quick details, I'm only going to use size 1. We're just going to not even thin it, because Army Painter basically comes pre-thinned, especially their metallics. Just goes on really smooth naturally. So then the question becomes, what areas do we want to do up in this here bronze? I think to start, definitely these coil-like sections kind of remind me of, oh, what are they called? Transformers? That's the word. We're just gonna give them a nice thin layer there. A little bit of water. Can come off just a little bit easier. There we go. Sometimes you just need a little bit of water to make it flow off the brush, but not so much that you're really thinning the paint. Just like that. So yeah, just dipping your brush in the water and then loading it up with paint is usually enough so that you can still get a nice thick color, but it flows well. And some nice broad strokes with the belly of the brush. Layer it on nice and thick. and evenly. While we're at it, we're also gonna hit this little wire. I feel like that would be some sort of copper material. I don't think that as living metal beings they're too worried about insulating their electrical systems. So how's that staying awake going for you there, Merlin? About to pass out at your desk? I mean, to be fair, a casual art stream probably wasn't the best idea for keeping you awake. I think the Bob Ross style is more of a lullaby. That'll do. Just gotta keep talking and no one passes out. Good idea. Roll the windows down, turn up the volume, do what you gotta do. That was probably the worst part of the job before the pandemic was when I was traveling a lot. I'd be getting home late a lot. There was a stretch of time where every Thursday for 9 months I wouldn't be getting back into the home airport until a little before midnight, and then by the time I got on the road, it would have been midnight, and I still had a 50-minute drive home. What makes you say, oh no, there, Merlin? You gotta go back into work tomorrow? Yeah, it wasn't a great time, but it's a time that's behind me now. Oh no. Well, that's one way to keep yourself awake. So what I just did there was I noticed I had made a mistake and accidentally slapped these tubes, which later I'm planning on doing up in black, so I probably didn't need to worry about it. But I didn't want the copper on them, so I threw my active brush into my water pot, grabbed a clean brush, and slapped the area with water. And luckily I'd gotten to it in time, because then it diluted all the wet paint on these cables. Uh, and then all I had to do was grab a Q-tip and soak all of that wet paint water back up. And it's nice and clean now. And now I can just get back to painting what I was painting. So there is sort of a Control Z button if you're fast enough, or if you're working with wet enough paint. Yeah, I think I want to do these like coils up in the bronze, but then the thick cables. Actually, I think on the last ones of these I did up these thick cables in a goblin green, just like I did the glowy bits. Sort of like the idea that the plasma is flowing through them. So maybe I'll do that. At which point it was important for me to dab up all that copper. One of the pains of working tight spaces like this. Really easy to make mistakes when you got jittery hands. Obviously this stand helps a bit, but it's not perfect. Of course, that said, it's not like these are going into any painting competition, so really shouldn't worry that much about them. Marilyn, can you guess what I'm doing right now? Ding, ding, ding. I am shrimping, which means your prize is a stretch reminder. Because I definitely need a reminder. Ooh. There we go. Much better. Alright, almost done with these copper details. Just 2 more models to go on them. One of these days I'm gonna have to rewatch my VODs. Audio off, obviously, because I hate the sound of my own voice, but I need to see if the way I'm holding things are actually keeping them in focus. All that good stuff. Because I imagine this is probably a pretty boring painting stream if you can't actually see what I'm painting. Just rehydrating real quick while I clean my brush. And we've just got this guy. One of these days I really need to make more of these handle holders. Pretty easy to do, they're just dowels with a little chunk of metal in them for the magnet to grab hold of. I've got all of the stuff I need out in my garage, it's just a matter of actually doing it. Which is, well, the story of my life, at least for the past 3 years. Hmm. Knowing that you've got a million things you could be doing, but instead just end up watching YouTube videos on the couch. Because really, you ran out of spoons by 10 a.m. that morning, and do you really want to do anything more? I kind of feel like our generation for the past 4 or 5 years has just kind of been suffering from a collective burnout that we do not have time to fix. All right, there we go. How do you think? I think that turned out pretty well. Oh yeah, inflation's a big one. Personally, I'm not feeling the pain too much, but I really can understand how it's going for everybody else. Got a friend who works as a teacher, and Jesus, she does not make enough money. Our society really does not value what provides true value to our society, like teachers and paramedics and all that. Or artists. I feel like artists get left out a lot from that discussion because, honestly, without culture, what's the point of living? Once you've met your basic needs, you need some form of beauty, some culture to actually make things worth striving for. Mm. Don't mind me just stretching more, because I need it while we wait for some of this paint to dry. I think we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of testing with this green wash. Now, just as a reminder, wash is a paint that's very low on medium and has surfactants in it, so it makes it really nice for getting into crevices for coloring in those areas, and usually darkens them down a bit too when you're talking about black or browns. But I'm wondering if this green wash will act as a nice start for filling in these little trenches with the color we want. And if not, it'll still add a nice little filter effect to the gun barrel for us to build upon to try and get that plasma glow going. So we're just gonna kind of stipple it in there, try and make sure that the majority of it is sitting in the recesses with only a little bit of it actually sitting on the flat areas. And we got plenty of time to work with it compared to paint because it's such a thin, watery wash. Of course. Despite all that surfactant, it still wants to create some surface tension there, so we're just going to dab it away by drying our brush off and then dipping it in. There we go. Now, one thing I could be doing here, if I really want to invest even more money into my ever-growing paint supply, is to do what's called oil washing. So these are acrylics, which means they are made of three components: uh, pigment, acrylic polymer as its medium, and water. Because acrylic polymer medium is soluble in water. Oil paints are pigment, um, oil medium, which I don't know what specific chemical that is, and then an oil soluble solvent. In chemistry, you'd define them as polar for water and non-polar for oil. But basically, because of that, you can't thin an oil paint with water. You have to thin it with either oils or uh, non-polar solvents like mineral oil or mineral spirits. So if you thin that oil paint with mineral spirits, what you're creating is a very, very thin but very pigmented wash, because mineral spirits have even less surface tension than surfactant infused water. So what you can do with those uh, oil pigments, oil washes, is just take a loaded brush, and as soon as you would put it into that recess, that trench, it would just shoot straight out of it and creep along. I've seen some oil washes creep a solid inch along a trench without any help. Just the the little prick that you would do, and it would just fill it right in. And then you can go back over with a Q-tip soaked in your mineral spirits and wipe over the flat parts that you didn't want any of that wash getting into, and it creates this great panel lining effect, which I've seen a lot on like Gundams and other large models like that. But like I said, that requires me to then go out and buy more mineral spirits, oil paints, and all that good stuff. And that's just more effort than I'm willing to put into it right now. But maybe when I do my Tau, that'll push me over the edge. But for now, we're just going to use this water-based wash. See if we can't get just a little bit of glow going with a couple layers of it. Worst case scenario, we'll just paint right over it. Maybe do 3 coats of wash, or 2 coats of wash and 1 layer of contrast, so that we get even darker green in the recesses, but green throughout, like the entire tube is filled up with it, instead of it being partially metal. Who knows? One of the nice aspects of doing batch painting like this is that you can just keep doing individual steps to models, and if you like what you did, you can continue with it on the rest, and if you don't like what happened, you can just keep using it as a test model, but do something different on your others. But so far, I think I like the look of at least 1 coat of this wash, so we're going to do that to everybody. I'm sort of wondering if there's any streams that I like to catch on Thursdays, or if I could be motivated to go a little bit longer tonight, just to try and get some more of this work done. Something I've also been meaning to try is I've got a set of 6 colors and black, white, and brown acrylic inks, which are very heavily on the end of the spectrum, where it's like, so with paint, like I've said before, you've got a lot of medium, a lot of pigment, and an amount of water, depending on whether it's soft body or heavy body. And then washes are a lot of water and a lot of pigment. Inks are mostly just like entirely pigment and just enough water to make them flow well. So they're very interesting to work with. They're like basically very fragile glazes right out of the bottle. Very heavily pigmented glazes. I'm curious if I could make my own mixes of washes with those. Because I already know I can make a pretty decent contrast paint out of them. So it shouldn't be too hard to do the same for a wash. And we'll see. Yeah, I might end up taking a break around the hour mark to let Miller on out to the backyard. And then, yeah, see if there's anyone I want to throw to on Twitch. But if there's nobody, well, maybe we'll just keep going. You shall see. And when I'm done painting these weapons, I do have to remember that their eyes and the holes in their body need this wash too. Because basically this green is not only the plasma powering the weapons, but also yeah, sort of their blood. I mean, they don't really have blood because they're living machines at this point, but it's the closest thing you get to blood while you're a machine. Better than the milk that you find in like an Aliens android or the Vex from the Destiny series. Just something about a thick white fluid as your blood seems very off-putting to me. And while we're at it, toss a little bit onto this orb of immortality this Overlord has. Try and give it a little bit of a glaze that we can build upon later. And hit his eyes like I just said. Generally, even on non-Necron units, this is sort of how I like to do faces and eyes, just hit it with wash, because doing actual, like, individual face work is a pain. And not even that realistic. If you think about, like, Like that old Civil War quote, don't shoot till you see the whites of their eyes. You have to be really close to somebody to see the whites of their eyes. So if you're looking at these tiny little figures, you imagine they're like 50 feet away, 100 feet away. You're not going to see the whites of their eyes. You're not going to see their pupils. So why would you want to paint their pupils? That's my 2 cents at least. So just wash in where the shadows of their eyes would be and call it a day. Alright, drive safe there, Merlin. Definitely blare that music. Don't want you falling asleep. And if I don't see you again later, thanks for tuning in. Alright. And on that note, we've just got done with all of our eyes. It's going to take a few minutes for this wash on their weapons and eyes to dry. So we are going to take a quick 5-minute break. And I'm going to make a decision as to whether or not we're going to keep going at it or if I'm going to toss you all to someone else. So stick around, get up, stretch, hydrate yourself, all that good stuff. And we'll be back in 5, hopefully. Alright, so scratch that. Miller is begging for attention right now, so I'm gonna go ahead and call it a night. I appreciate everybody coming on out to watch me paint, and I hope you drop a follow. Come back on Saturday morning. We'll finish up these guys and maybe even move on to some Space Marines. But for now, I'm going to toss you by the way of Foxmar 320, a friend of Lure, I believe, and a pretty nice guy. He's playing Sea of Thieves right now, so, you know, if that's your jam, go ahead and stick around with him. If not, I hope you have a good rest of your night and, spread that love around. Do something nice for yourself. Do something nice for someone that isn't you. All that good stuff. All right. Thanks, everyone.